This video is a focus on the third down coverage choices that Zach Orr and the Baltimore Ravens defensive staff made in their Thanksgiving night loss to the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow and the offense for Cincinnati finished 8 of 19 on third downs, 1 for 2 on fourth down conversions, so 42% on third down. That would be like 7th or 8th in the NFL right now throughout the course of the season. I think Cincinnati is almost at 40% globally for the year, so pretty close to their performance before Burrow even returned. Going to try to give you an idea of some of the coverage patterns that Zach Orr chose to utilize and the ways that they tried to handle Ja'Marr Chase as the primary receiver in this offense. Got 11 plays queued up for you here, only one of which does not include a third down. So this is the first possession. Cincinnati, of course, got the ball to open the game. 3rd and 7, kind of an innocuous screen down here that we actually are set up for. And what I mean by that is they're going to have a one-on-one between Ja'Marr Chase, who's most of the time in this video will be spot shadowed in yellow, and Starks because of the blocking scheme, but also because of what Marlon Humphrey does. So basically, the blocking scheme would be Chase, jumping out to the flats really quickly, and the tight end, I believe this is Hudson, who catches the touchdown later in the game against Hamilton in the end zone, the other end zone, pinning down on Humphrey, and then the outside receiver blocking the number 1 corner to the top, which I believe is Nate Wiggins. Joe Burrow starts, clapping really quickly to try to get the ball out. I think he knows that they've got an opportunity to get this conversion here for a couple of reasons. Number one, Marlon Humphrey starts jumping to the inside. There's something here about our look, what we're showing, and then the point in time at which we've been coached to actually shift into our final presentation before the snap. We've really got ourselves in a bad situation by Marlon jumping to the inside. You can see the angle that the tight ends got. We're fortunate here, if you ask me, that this one's dropped by Chase. He looks like he's looking for the football over this shoulder, he being Chase, and Joe Burrow delivers it over the other shoulder as if he expects him to turn and try to get upfield. So just one of those situations. And, if he does catch the football, they're trying to get Humphrey blocked and the number 1 Wiggins blocked. So it looks like to me it's going to be Starks one-on-one in this alley with Chase trying to make the tackle. We're fortunate in that we held them to a field goal on the opening drive, but I think the tone was kind of set that they were going to be able to, get the ball down the field and create a number of 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, maybe even 3rd and 5 situations. So the first snap of the second drive for Cincinnati, I love this play call. It's a double cornerback blitz. So it's going to be Marlon on a blitz off the edge right here, as well as Wiggins from the bottom side. Now, Wiggins is a little bit delayed here. Typically, both guys are blitzing inside, but the only thing I can figure is that, maybe Wiggins is getting tied up here. I don't think he momentarily forgot about his assignment or his task. Maybe it's because the receiver stepped to him, but in any case, Marlon, free rusher, gets the sack. I think this is a response to what we maybe saw on the first possession, meaning Zach Orr and the defensive staff. In addition, when we do run this double corner blitz, typically the outside linebackers, defensive ends are assigned to occupy the tackles. Makes sense, right? The corners are blitzing off the edge to the outside. You want to occupy the tackles who would be the closest offensive linemen to possibly be able to disrupt that. Think back to the Christmas Day win in San Francisco late in the season 2023, where Stevens and Marlon Humphrey blitz off the edge. Stevens jumps, elevates in the air to knock the ball away as Brock Purdy's trying to get it out to the receiver, and then Marlon ends up getting the interception on a ball that's deflected up in the air. Wiggins a little slower here, but in any case, this is our only sack of the game. And I think some of the coverages that I'm going to present and talk about, obviously work a whole lot better if we're able to get more consistent pressure on Joe Burrow. Humphrey had our only sack. He also had 2 quarterback hits, a total of 2 quarterback hits. I think the team total output for that situation, quarterback hits, was 6 or maybe 7. Still on that second possession, we've skipped a couple of plays. Again, going to focus on only third downs from here on out. We're in this 3-safety look. So not just 3 safeties on the field, but actually 3 high structure with 2 corners, Awuzie and Nate Wiggins. It's a 3rd and 17, so we're going to morph into something else, and it's a cover 3. So they're using basically Chase as bait here, if you ask me, trying to get someone to check up on that route such that maybe they can hit this deeper curl by, I think that's 80, or Tinsley up at the top side, running kind of like a skinny post. We drop Hamilton down and push Marlon out to the flats. I think basically we've got a cover 3 post snap. It makes sense, right? It's 3rd and 17. So here's your 4 underneath droppers, not in a nice clean line. But again, I think this is because, that's Ja'Marr Chase. So Hamilton has attached himself to Chase because that's the guy that we knew Burrow was going to be looking to. I believe they're trying to possibly get the ball to this receiver here, 80, or Tinsley there in one of the seams, perhaps in some different coverage. Who knows what they were, actually expecting, but what they got was a cover 3 where nothing was given to them, no lane for Burrow to throw the football to in that zone. Checks it down to the running back, and we get a stop on the second possession. There's always going to be a balance when you face them, whether Chase and Higgins are active and playing that day or not, meaning how aggressive do you want to be on some of these third downs? Because let's be honest, Burrow is willing, and even Joe Flacco, if he was playing, they're willing to just throw the ball down the sidelines and kind of live with the results against a cover 3 or even man free. Third possession after our turnover, 1-play turnover. In fact, it was the same stunt that's given us trouble for a year and a half now at this point, along the right side of our offensive line. I did a real big film study video on Emory Jones. If you want to see it, I kind of compare the difference between the way that Jones looked in his first NFL game and some of our other offensive linemen in terms of lack of technique. So it's a goal line stand here for us. We only had to stop one run play. So spectacular choices by the Bengals, because we know basically when they line up with a tight end in the backfield, it's not a running play, right? So I call this flex invert. So the running back, Chase Brown, is set up as the number 2 receiver, and the tight end is in the backfield. Of course, it's not going to be a run play. They're not going to hand the ball off no matter who that tight end is. So the concept that he's looking at initially is Chase underneath, and I think it's possible that Chase Brown may actually be supposed to execute a better pick here up to the top side on Marlon Humphrey, who's lined up against Chase. So we're talking about Burrow looking to this side. In addition, Roquan Smith has settled underneath of that little in cut. I'm talking about Roquan right here, and you will get the end zone angle so you can see it. If Burrow throws the ball to Chase underneath here, he's got no window at all between Humphrey and Roquan, essentially sandwiching Chase. So he's going to come back down to the bottom side of the screen after getting flushed out of the pocket, or after choosing to leave the pocket, I should say. Another example of our 4-man rush scheme, really getting nothing done at all. I think Mike Green ends up on the ground after being chipped by the tight end. So Burrow has moved out to the edge, and there is some space here between Wiggins and the receiver for a moment, right when Burrow is deciding to throw that football, and then Wiggins closes that space down. It seemed to me like Burrow hesitated a little bit between the top of the numbers and when he actually throws the football, or maybe he should have thrown the football at the top of the numbers, because there's some space there for a moment. Wiggins, great recovery to get a pass defense. Same play from the end zone angle. The initial setup has Brown in the backfield. Like I said, this is the 3rd and goal, and the tight end, almost like a sniffer, kind of an up back, if you will, and then they're going to switch those two guys or invert them. So Brown slots out to the right into the boundary where Chase is, and then 89 Sample, the tight end, settles next to Burrow. We're in dime personnel, and I think oftentimes in this first half, Burrow wanted to get lined up as soon as possible so he could see what we were lined up in and kind of formulate his plan for the routes that they had and whether or not he had to change the play. He was exceptional at it in many cases. In this case, he's looking over to the right. It's a really nice job, if you ask me, by Roquan of identifying. I mean, that's where Ja'Marr Chase is, right? So where would you drift as an inside linebacker, number 1? Number 2, Starks was lined up as a dime linebacker here, and so he's eventually going to track or match up with this tight end who chips Mike Green onto the ground. We're talking about right here. Starks will match up with that tight end, and that kind of threatens Burrow a little bit as he extends this play out, and Roquan has come all the way across the field. Remember, Roquan was matching up, or at least getting the window of the route by Chase on the right-hand side, and now once Burrow escapes, really leaves the pocket, Roquan all the way across the field to try to pressure him. Starks has matched up with Sample. You don't really get a great angle of this one by Wiggins, other than me trying to pause it at the moment of the pass deflected. Sets us up for a 4th and goal. Wiggins actually had 2 nice stops down in the end zone. The other one I'll show you was from the second quarter. So this is the very next snap, the 4th and goal. This allows us to retain a 7-3 lead. So it's man free, basically. Chase is going to end up as the number 3. Initially, they were in bunch. And it's 12 personnel. This is an indicator that I want to talk about. I'm not saying that Zach Orr or our defense didn't do a good job of identifying things. In fact, I believe they did in multiple cases, particularly in the first half. It's 12 personnel with Chase. And whoever's calling plays for them, whoever's designing the concepts, in my opinion, is using tight ends intentionally as blockers, or in this case, to run a pick or a shield. I actually really like this concept. So Gesicki, if I'm saying his name right, is matched up with Hamilton. He's going to go underneath, very similar to the route that Chase just ran on the previous snap. And then Hudson, 87, is going to pick, screen, whatever you want to call it, on Hamilton. Burrow is throwing it. He thinks it's there. Hamilton is right on Gesicki's hip. I don't know that Hamilton actually gets a hand in there at all. It just seems like all the contact that it took for Gesicki to get open, let's be honest, it's inside of 5 yards, so there's going to be contact allowed by the defense and the offense. There's no attempt at a route here by 87. I'm not saying I think this should be called. It's just kind of annoying that this is pretty much all teams do down in the end zone. Burrow's already throwing the football. It's out. Chase, as a part of this, I would say is read number 2. Read number 1 is Gesicki, the tight end. And I love what Hamilton does here. He just runs through his face. He just runs through 87's face. There's no attempt by Hamilton to go underneath of this, which would have created more space for the tight end. I love the fact that Hamilton's like, okay, if this is what we're going to do, that's fine with me. Let's see how willing you are to accept the contact. 87 clearly veered his way out of the way. It's underneath or inside of 5 yards, so it's legal. Fine. It's just annoying that there's no real route there by 87 at all. No real attempt to run a route. It's a quite obvious pick. But it's inside of 5 yards, so they get away with it. Fortunately, the throw by Burrow wasn't able to be handled by Gesicki, and we get a stop to preserve our 7-3 lead. This is one of two, really disappointing or frustrating situations in this half on third down specifically. So we're going to double the X, which is Chase, down into the boundary. Wiggins kind of plays like a trail technique, if you will. Once again, they've inverted the running back, I think it's Chase Brown, and the tight end is set up in the backfield. So they're broadcasting that it's pass, but it's 12 personnel. So they're trying to take advantage of the unique abilities of the guys on their roster. What I mean is Gesicki is a really good receiving tight end. He's split out to the trips, and then I would assume that 89 is their best blocker in the backfield, and that's why he's set up there as the running back. We're basically going to double Chase to the bottom side of our screen. In addition, up at the top side, Starks kind of drops down, and it almost looks like he's trying to defend this type of route from Gesicki. Now, that's not actually what Gesicki runs here. If Burrow chose to throw the football to Gesicki over the top, he's got Marlon Humphrey beat, but Starks is in position, I think, to dissuade Burrow from making that throw. That's my guess as to why we're dropping Starks down, and then we're orienting Gilman to try to handle Chase in a double-team situation with Wiggins. Hopefully I explain that in a way that makes sense. So Burrow's not looking at Chase at first. He's looking to the top side. His left, where we're playing a unique coverage there, basically outside leverage with Starks dropping down, I think trying to take away that outbreaking route. And Burrow doesn't think he can throw it because of the orientation or the leverage that Starks has. Man, the change of direction that Chase shows here to leave behind an athlete like Wiggins, who's in trail technique, in my opinion, basically, with a safety over the top, puts his foot in the ground, goes to the sideline, makes it look easy. Very frustrating, but that's the difference, right, between facing a guy like Chase with Burrow and or Flacco. I mean, Flacco's throwing for more yards and more touchdowns than Burrow did, but we would expect that to change for Burrow at some point, probably soon. It's a great conversion by them. The recognition of Chase to see that Burrow didn't go to anything to the top side. Watch when he breaks off this route somewhere between the top of the numbers and the right hash, because the ball's not out where Burrow was reading initially, which was to the trip side. Have to give them credit for being on the same page, the recognition that they've got. The only thing that I can guess is that Burrow knew what coverage we were going to be in from a man standpoint, and he knew that he could come back to Chase. And I'm not saying that he had 100% certainty that we were going to double Jamar Chase, but look, who could possibly guard the tight end who's set up in the backfield? Only Roquan. We're not going to use either of these two guys to guard the tight end, Van Noy or Dre'Mont Jones. We're mugged up. Chase's backside. It's a too high safety look from the Ravens from a presentation standpoint. How many iterations of this have we shown? Meaning, Roquan set up to the field away from the running back / tight end, too high safety structure. How many times have we shown that? My guess here, my best guess, is that Burrow knew he was going to get some version of man, probably with a double on the backside, and that's why he looked to the trip side first. Van Noy is running a pick stunt. I want you to kind of try to pay attention to how the guard, I think this is Rissner, but I could be wrong, handles this. So he slams Van Noy down into the center, basically taking away Van Noy's momentum. And then he's going to take over Travis Jones, who's an absolute load, obviously. Here's Roquan matching up with a tight end, by the way. Then he matches up with Travis Jones, stonewalls him, and gives Burrow an opportunity. I think Van Noy might be trying to draw a hold. Maybe Van Noy's actually being held. I don't know. But he's definitely raising his arms up in the air to make it look like he's being held. In any case, it's a four-man rush scheme that they picked up generally. Gave Burrow a chance to escape. You can see the separation that Chase has on Wiggins down here, the change of direction. I feel like if Wiggins was actually playing a regular man technique, he would probably be in better leverage here to stay with him, in my opinion, because he was in that trail type coverage underneath that actually put him at more of a deficit once Chase changed directions. Hopefully I said that in a way that makes sense and was able to pronounce it correctly. Most games, most teams in the NFL, we probably get a stop there. But because it's Chase, because it's Burrow, and their offensive line picked up, the pick stunt by Van Noy so well, Van Noy and Travis Jones so well, they were able to retain possession of the football. Another 3rd and 4 on that same possession. And this is going to be, I call it Y hide, but there's different names for it. So first, Chase is set up to the field, but you'll notice it's a bunch formation, only one tight end on the field. It's Fant. That's a wide receiver, number 80. Starks is set up in man on Fant, who's going to slide across the heels of the offensive line. Essentially, you've got a clear-out concept here on the bottom side by, I think that's Mitchell Tinsley. I'm obviously not glad that they found another quality receiver, but I root for Mitchell Tinsley. I remember when he transferred to Penn State. Didn't necessarily work out numbers-wise for him his final year at Penn State, but talented guy in my opinion, and I'm glad that he's finding a role or a niche somewhere in the NFL. So here's Starks on Fant. He'll make the tackle, 3rd and 4, just short of the first down. The only thing that I can think as far as this play call is that the Bengals, knew what Van Noy's reaction was going to be to this mesh with the running back, potentially a run play, and the tight end coming across, basically making it look like split zone. It bothers me a little bit that we're in a mug look and Van Noy's jumping underneath. So the idea here for me, if you're jumping underneath and you want to force some type of bounce by the running back, then someone's going to be able to fold over the top. Maybe that's the idea with Starks, is that he will be able to fold over the top. But he's responsible in man. So a little bit of conflict there created by the way that Van Noy played it, in my opinion. Ends up being a 3-yard gain. They did get the conversion on the next snap, a 4th and 1 quarterback sneak by Joe Burrow. Same play from the end zone angle. I'm not saying I hate what Van Noy's doing. I just wonder about whether we should be doing this when we've obviously called man as our base coverage here. The idea here for me would be is if the tight end is running split zone and everybody on the offensive line is stepping this way, which they generally are, then the running back is going to try, he's going to get the football and go perhaps underneath of that kick-out block, or what effectively is a kick-out block. He really has a two-way go, right? He is, whatever, however you want to coach it, bend it, bang it, whatever. He's got the opportunity to cut it underneath of that kick-out block, underneath of Fant, and I'm guessing that's why Van Noy goes underneath, and then he has to kind of veer out to Burrow a little bit late. Starks, I think, did a nice job getting across there, trying to challenge the play. Like I said, they converted on the very next snap on a quarterback sneak, a traditional quarterback sneak from Burrow. Eventually, they're able to get to 7-6 on another field goal. I think that should actually say still 7-3. This is still on the 4th possession. It's a quick snap situation. So Burrow is getting them lined up, and they're snapping the ball quickly. And the only thing that I can suspect here is that Cincinnati has got Chase down in the bunch with 2 tight ends. So they're trying to run another screen to Chase because he's their best athlete, he's their best playmaker, and we've sniffed it out. In my opinion, the reaction of Gilman here to this formation and what eventually the resulting play means we're trying to stop the screen. And so that's why Joe Burrow pump fakes this, because Gilman is running radically upfield. He's not reading anything. I think we knew the play, or at least Gilman did. Let me get in the window here so Burrow can't get the ball to Chase to his right on a 3rd and 4. This is dangerous, man, by Joe Burrow. He made a lot of really good decisions, don't get me wrong. Van Noy has stunted underneath. You'll get the end zone angle here in a moment. And Burrow, nonetheless, still, while he's within the grasp of Van Noy, still decides to flip the football out for Pirine. It's actually a 3rd and 10. I think I have that mislabeled as a 3rd and 4. No, I did. I had 3rd and 10. But in any case, it ends up being a 6-yard gain. Give you the end zone angle so you can see what I'm talking about. Here's Gilman on the right-hand side. Chase is off screen to our left, but the right-hand side for the Bengals offense. Like I said, 3rd and 10. We're in a mug look. Watch what Van Noy does. Maybe it's not communicated between Van Noy, Gilman, Hamilton, etc. It looks like Dre'Mont Jones knows that it's a screen. Watch his violent rush upfield and then trying to get his hands up. We know that Gilman is off screen to our left, also getting upfield. Van Noy has stunted to the inside, and he gets Burrow in his grasp. Very dangerous play from a ball security standpoint. Worked out for them. I think they still got 6 yards and eventually produced a field goal to close to within 7-6. Perhaps I should have said earlier that I'm generally just going to focus on first half coverages on 3rd down. You can see there's a lot of them. I mean, they did run 80 plays compared to our 57, so they possessed the football for a long time. We just weren't able to get them off the field soon enough, quick enough, like other than that second possession where we used a corner blitz to get that done. The ability to generate pressure, obviously needs to improve the rest of this year and beyond. So another 3rd down, and this is 2 interesting choices on this drive here by Zach Orr. First of all, we've got Chase versus Wiggins on the downside of our screen, and we're going basically 2-man from a coverage standpoint with a spy. So we're only rushing 3. I'm talking about these 3 here, and then the spy being Trenton Simpson. I'm glad that we've carved out a role for Trenton Simpson. I'm a little surprised that we're playing this so much. We didn't use this at all until Detroit used it against us, right, in Week 7 to get 4 or 5 of their 7 sacks on that night. Basically the same look to this part of the field, all right, with Wiggins trailing kind of on the inside of Chase and then Gilman over the top. This time, it looks like to me we're basically playing a mirrored coverage, 3-man rush, 2-man from a coverage standpoint. A little unusual. I'm not saying that it's not sound because the Lions have used it a lot to great success on 3rd downs against athletic quarterbacks in particular. In this case, Wiggins, you can see what he does. He jumps or he reacts to Chase as if he's running the same route that he ran earlier. See, Wiggins jump to the inside. Chase gives a little bit of a fake, and that creates enough room for Burrow, who's already thrown the football, for Chase to catch down in here. I won't say this is easy, but it's easy for them. For those 2 guys, this is easy to convert this type of thing. How do we displace that, or how do we disrupt it? Probably allow Wiggins to be a little bit more aggressive and not be so robotic and telling him, hey, you're going to trail or you're going to be down on the bottom side hip. But, then you open yourself up to possible other route configurations, after the snap. Really, I think Chase, the larger point here is that Chase and Burrow together, or Chase and Joe Flacco, the way that he's performed in Cincinnati, it's 2 levels of danger higher than what you'll face most weeks. That conversion and the other 3rd and 10, super disappointing, and I'm not excusing them. I'm just saying that's the level that these guys play at sometimes. If you don't have a corner that's aggressive enough and fast enough to be able to stop him. I think Wiggins is, to be honest with you. Chase is just on a higher trajectory, later trajectory in his career. We've got an example here of a stop that Wiggins makes down in the end zone against Ja'Marr Chase. It's a very tight split, so kind of a giveaway, or it should be an alert for a fade. 3rd and 6 on that same possession. And we go with another 3-man rush, but it's an interesting coverage. First of all, it's from a mug look, all right? So we've got 6 guys lined up as potential rushers with Kyle Hamilton walking up late. We drop out to a Tampa 2, a red zone Tampa 2, But not just a red zone Tampa 2, another three-man rush. So we're bringing three. And this becomes that fourth dropper in what I would call a Tampa 2. Half field safety, cover two corner, but not reacting like a cover two at all there. So sometimes to the backside and to the boundary, your boundary side your boundary side corner is playing a little bit different technique than everybody else. I think that's what we've got here. He's not conceding yards. He being Wiggins, he's not conceding ground. So he's forcing Chase's route to be a little bit more delayed. And you can see when the ball arrives, there's some separation. It's difficult because of the angle, but there's some separation in where Chase is and where he should be. I'm not saying I'm not a big fan of this coverage. I'm a little surprised by it, to be honest with you, against these guys. Having said that, I'm glad that we're allowing Wiggins to be physical, and he can be physical because he's got that safety help to a particular leverage. So because Chase is trying to get outside release, he has to be physical. There's no help out here other than the sideline, right? I think Wiggins is playing really well, much better than he did for a couple of weeks. I think it was against Miami and whoever we played after that. In any case, it held Cincinnati to a field goal, and they took a 9-7 lead. Finally, the last one that I'll show you is late second quarter. They, of course, got like 2 added possessions because we had to punt and then we had a fumble. They're up 9-7. It would eventually become 12-7. This one is against Awuzie, up at the top side. Chase, it's a vertical release to the outside. And I'm not showing the corner's reactions, but basically what we're doing here is Starks is showing single high look pre-snap, and then he'll roll down. And then I think that's Gilman is up on the line of scrimmage as a potential blitzer. And then he's going to roll back to center field. We've basically replaced those two with each other. The only thing is Gilman doesn't get to, center field where Starks was lined up pre-snap. It's a vertical release. I think you just got another example of Burrow trusting Chase or T. Higgins. And in this case, Awuzie is right with him. In fact, Awuzie is ahead of him. I'm not sure what Burrow sees to throw that football other than the fact he trusts Ja'Marr Chase to try to go get it. Awuzie, great coverage relationship. Ball still there in Ja'Marr Chase's hands. I think Awuzie just gets a hand on it. We just lacked pressure in this half. The coverage element, what we were doing on the back end at times, it worked. I understand the concepts. I'm not being overly critical of them. I'm not just passing them off. Ultimately, they finished at 42% on third downs. The first half defense was definitely, they had their back against the wall multiple times, right? We had 3 turnovers on offense. The defense had a goal line stand to help us hold on to that 7-3 lead in the first quarter. Cincinnati's second possession, basically. They get the ball inside our 10. I thought our coverage guys are often put in position to succeed, especially against Chase. He just makes plays. Him and Burrow make plays together. But the pass rush, for the most part, ineffective. We got Burrow off his spot a couple of times, but as you saw twice in this video, Burrow actually kind of just moved off the spot on his own, of his own accord 2 times. The only sack was Marlon Humphrey that I showed you, and that's on a 1st and 10 double cornerback blitz. We had 7 quarterback hits. Again, 2 of those are from Humphrey. I don't know if the 3-man rush schemes tell us anything. They popped up at interesting times in the second quarter. I showed you guys 2 of them here. I think there was 1 more in the first half that I chose not to display. I'm not saying I believe this is what the strategy is. It just makes me wonder if we're content or we're okay with not getting pressure. I don't know that I agree with that approach, if that is what the approach is. Wiggins, to me, looks like a guy who can defend players like Chase and compete with them if he's got some leverage side help. Those 2 moments, specifically the first one, but 2 of them where he's got safety help over the top, I feel like we should be a little bit more aggressive with allowing him to win to a certain side, meaning Wiggins, like we did down there in the goal line. But there's less space, it's more compressed, and it's easier to play a better quality of coverage, down inside the 10, inside the 5. In any case, he competed with Chase. Awuzie did on the deep rep that I showed you as well. They go to him a lot. Chase has 7 catches for 110 or maybe 114 yards. It took 14 targets total to get that done. Now, 2 of them were screens, one of which I showed you. They were inefficient for the most part, except for some of those third downs. Chase had the 43-yard catch in the second half, I believe. He also had the 2 receptions to convert on 3rd and 10 that I showed you here, effectively against double teams. For me, the bigger issue, I won't say bigger issue, but just as important, was the second half touchdown from Tanner Hudson to beat Kyle Hamilton. I can't even believe I uttered that sentence. But look, Burrow went at Hamilton when he knew it was man. I showed you, I believe, one of them here. That leaves a little bit of questions in my mind about what other teams' quarterbacks are seeing or thinking when they pick and choose who to attack. Not everything's matchup based. There's a little bit of a misconception about that sometimes, right? And I even just kind of was guilty of that myself in the last 30 to 45 seconds. Sometimes it's just the read or the design of the play. It's tough for us to tell. In fact, in some cases, it's impossible. But Burrow went at Hamilton in a critical moment. I think that was a 3rd down catch from Hudson for a touchdown. Maybe it was 2nd down. In any case, I think that'll be something to look at moving forward when we play the Steelers and when we play the Bengals again. If Hamilton becomes the target on 3rd down against some of these tight ends, it'll make me start to wonder what other teams are seeing. Basically, the idea is we think he's Superman. He's definitely an all-pro player, playing at a high level no matter where the Ravens put him. But if other teams' quarterbacks are targeting him on 3rd down more often than our minds suspect, or than our minds would expect, I should say, that to me gives us a little bit of indication as to what other teams' quarterbacks think he can and cannot do. Nonetheless, Burrow was only 24 of 46 passing. I think 260 yards. So, that's definitely less than 6 yards per attempt. My guess is to be 5.5, 5.6, somewhere in that area. Chase had the 43-yarder that kind of actually skews that data. I can't help but think that even on a night when our offense stunk, right? Ball security was terrible across the board. If we were able to get more pressure, organic 4-man rushes, that maybe the coverage element would have looked better. I'm not excusing Zach Orr. Some of the choices, particularly the touchdown to Iosivas or Yoshivas, however you say his name, against Roquan. You guys know what I think of that one. I did a full-length film study about it. I loathe that coverage choice, matching up an inside linebacker with a receiver who's 8-9 yards separated from him from a horizontal alignment pre-snap. But ultimately, our defense was playing uphill and at an extreme deficit. If we were able to get some more pressure organically, I feel like the defense still could have kept things a whole lot tighter than they did, even though we were minus 23 from total plays run. Cincinnati had 80 offensive snaps. We only had 57. We finished -4 in the turnover margin for the game. Anything close to even, or perhaps -1, would have given us a whole lot better opportunity to beat a Cincinnati team that just ultimately really isn't that good, in my opinion, especially after watching the All-22 film. Our offense put us at an extreme disadvantage on the other side. You guys are more than welcome to let me know what you think of my thoughts and some of my evaluations here in this video, as well as the plays that I used to kind of illustrate, the quality of defense that we played at times and the way that Burrow and Chase were able to exploit us on some of these 3rd downs. If you think other Ravens fans would enjoy this film study look at the 3rd down coverages that we used, mostly focusing on the first half of our Thanksgiving Day loss to the Bengals, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.